He helped her daughter. What the Apache mother said next shocked the rancher. The sun was just beginning to rise over the wide, open plains of Arizona, spilling golden light across the dusty ranch where Tom had lived all his life. The early morning air was crisp, and a gentle breeze carried the faint smell of dry grass and the soft warmth of the desert sun. Tom moved slowly along the fence line, checking the livestock. His hands were rough, worn from years of work, but steady. Horses grazed nearby, their tails swishing lazily, and the occasional clink of a cowbell echoed softly across the fields. Life on the ranch was simple, but it was a life he loved. As he walked, Tom noticed something unusual at the far edge of his property. A small figure struggled near a broken wagon wheel. At first he thought it might be one of the neighboring rancher's children, but as he got closer, he realized it was a young girl, no older than 10 or 11. Her clothes were worn, dusty, and her hair hung in tangled strands around her face. She was clearly struggling to move the heavy wagon, her tiny hands gripping the wood as if it might break at any moment. Without hesitation, Tom quickened his pace. He had seen children wander near the ranch before, and he had learned to act quickly when someone needed help. "Hey there," he called gently, careful not to startle her. "Do you need a hand?" The girl froze, her wide brown eyes darting toward him. She was nervous, but something about Tom's calm presence seemed to put her slightly at ease. I think the wheel broke," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Tom knelt down beside the wagon, examining the broken wheel. The axle had snapped, leaving the wagon leaning dangerously to one side. "That's a heavy lift for one person," he said, giving her a reassuring smile. "We'll get it fixed. Don't worry." The girl watched him carefully as he began loosening the bolts and lifting the wheel. Her small hands hovered near his as if she wanted to help but wasn't sure how. "I'm Lila," she finally said, her voice quiet but steady. "Nice to meet you, Lila." "I'm Tom," he replied. "Where's your mother?" She hesitated. "She's over there," she said, pointing vaguely toward the tree line at the edge of the property. There was a flicker of worry in her eyes, as if she were unsure whether it was safe to speak too much. Tom didn't push. He knew children could be protective of their parents, especially if they were used to being careful around strangers. Working together, they managed to lift the broken wheel and set it aside. Tom retrieved some tools from his truck while Lila watched intently, her curiosity gradually overcoming her initial fear. As he worked, he noticed how careful she was, how she seemed to understand more than most children her age. There was a quiet intelligence in her eyes, a sense of observation and awareness that made him pause for a moment. "You're pretty strong for your age," Tom said casually as he tightened the bolts. Lila smiled faintly, a small blush coloring her cheeks. "I try," she admitted. Finally, the wheel was back in place, secured firmly. Tom tested it by giving it a gentle push. It rolled smoothly over the dirt road. "There we go," he said. "Good as new." Lila's eyes lit up with relief. "Thank you," she said earnestly. "I didn't know what I would do if it stayed broken." Tom smiled and ruffled her hair gently. "You did fine. And don't worry. Sometimes it's okay to ask for help." For a moment, they stood quietly, the only sound the soft rustle of the morning wind through the grass. Then, from the edge of the tree line, a figure appeared. Tom's eyes narrowed slightly as he observed the woman approaching. She moved with a calm but cautious grace, her posture tall and proud. Her skin was sun-kissed, her dark hair braided neatly, and her eyes were sharp, watching everything as she came closer. There was an intensity in her gaze, a kind of quiet authority that made Tom instinctively respectful. "Is this your daughter?" Tom asked, nodding toward Lila. "Yes," the woman said, her voice steady and calm, though there was an edge of caution in her tone. "And I see you have helped her." Tom nodded. "She was having trouble with the wagon. I just wanted to make sure she was safe." The woman stepped closer, carefully observing him. "I am Maria," she said. "Ah, her mother. Thank you for helping, but I must know, why did you intervene?" Tom met her gaze, understanding the weight of her question. "Because she needed help," he said simply. "I couldn't just watch a child struggle alone." Maria studied him for a long moment. She seemed to weigh his words, judging not just their truth but the character behind them. There was a brief silence, filled only by the whisper of wind and the distant calls of birds. Then she nodded slightly. "I see," she said. "It is rare to meet someone willing to help without asking for something in return." Tom felt a strange mixture of relief and curiosity. There was something different about Maria, something he could not quite place. She was cautious, yes, but there was also a warmth beneath her strength, a protective nature for her daughter, a loyalty and wisdom that demanded respect. "Shall we get her home?" Tom asked, gesturing toward the direction she had indicated earlier. Maria nodded. "Yes, but you will come no further than the edge of our land," she said firmly. "We must maintain our ways, and I must know who you are before allowing strangers too close." Tom agreed, understanding her need for boundaries. "Of course, I would never intrude." As they walked, Lila held Maria's hand tightly, glancing occasionally at Tom with a shy smile. The young girl seemed relieved, happy to be reunited with her mother, yet eager to share the experience she had just had. Tom found himself smiling too, realizing how much a small act of kindness could ripple outward, touching more than one life. The morning continued with a quiet, almost ceremonial rhythm. Maria asked Lila gentle questions about the wagon and the work Tom had done, while Tom answered simply, careful to respect her authority. There was an unspoken understanding forming, a mutual respect that neither had anticipated. By the time they reached the edge of the tree line, Maria stopped and turned to Tom. Her eyes were serious, but not unkind. "You have shown care," she said slowly. "That is not common. It is something I notice. Do not mistake my caution for distrust." Tom nodded. "I understand. I just wanted to help." Maria's expression softened slightly. "Sometimes help comes with responsibility," she said. "It is not just the action, but what you are willing to accept afterward. You have accepted some responsibility today, whether you know it or not." Tom felt the weight of her words, realizing there was more to this encounter than a broken wagon and a lost child. There was an unspoken lesson, a recognition of trust and character, something that would linger in his mind long after the morning had ended. Lila tugged gently at Maria's hand, and the mother-daughter pair began to walk deeper into the tree line, disappearing from view. Tom stayed at the edge of his property, watching them go, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and anticipation. There was something about Maria, about the bond she shared with her daughter, that left him both humbled and intrigued. He took a deep breath, the smell of the desert and the sound of the wind filling him with a quiet sense of peace. Today had started like any other day on the ranch, but it had turned into something more, a reminder that even in a world of wide-open spaces and simple lives, acts of kindness could spark connections that were unexpected and profound. As Tom turned back toward his house, he could not help but wonder what this encounter would mean. He knew one thing for certain. He had done the right thing by helping Lila, and somehow he felt that this small act would ripple far beyond this morning, touching lives in ways he could not yet imagine. Tom stayed at the edge of his ranch, watching Maria and Lila disappear into the line of trees that marked the boundary of the Apache land. He could feel the quiet intensity of the mother's gaze lingering in his mind. There was something about her that commanded respect. She was cautious, but not unkind. Her daughter had wandered into his world for a moment, and now he was left with a feeling he could not easily shake. He returned to the barn to check on the horses, but even as he worked, his thoughts kept drifting back to the pair walking away. A few hours later, while Tom was mending the fence near the corral, he saw movement again at the edge of the property. Maria had returned, alone this time. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp, as though she was carefully deciding what to make of him. She carried herself with quiet strength, each step deliberate and measured. Tom wiped his hands on his jeans and approached her. "Good morning," he said, trying to keep his tone friendly but respectful. "Good morning," Maria replied. Her voice was soft yet firm, like someone who was used to being listened to. "I hope my daughter did not cause you too much trouble." "Not at all," Tom said, smiling. "She was a little tired, but we managed." "I was happy to help." Maria studied him for a moment. There was a pause, a quiet tension in the air, as if she were weighing whether to trust him further. "I saw how you treated her," she said finally. "You were gentle and patient. That is not always easy with children who are afraid or cautious." Tom nodded, feeling a mix of pride and humility. "I try to treat everyone with respect," he said simply, "especially children." Maria's eyes softened slightly, but she did not relax completely. "You will come with me," she said abruptly. "I need to see how you behave outside your land before I can fully trust you with my daughter's safety." Tom was surprised by the request, but he understood her reasoning. "Of course," he replied. "Where are we going?" "Back to our camp," Maria said. "It is not far, but you must follow my rules. Respect is important, and you must show that you understand our ways." Tom agreed, and they began the walk together. Lila trailed behind briefly, but quickly ran ahead to show her friends something she had found near the camp. Maria watched her with a careful eye, then turned her attention back to Tom. As they walked, Tom noticed the subtle details of her movement, the way she balanced herself over uneven ground, the way she spoke to the few other people they passed with polite authority. She was clearly someone who carried responsibility daily, not just for her daughter, but for the community around her. The walk was quiet for a while, each step measured. Tom respected her space, careful not to speak too much, but after a few minutes, Maria glanced at him. "I notice that you care for your land," she said. "Ah, your animals are healthy, your fences strong. That tells me something about you." Tom smiled faintly. "I've been working this land all my life. You learn to take care of what you have, and that includes animals and people." Maria nodded thoughtfully. "Good. That is the first step toward trust. How you treat what is around you reflects who you are inside." Tom felt the weight of her words. He had always thought of his work on the ranch as a duty, something to keep life simple and steady. But Maria's words made him realize that responsibility could also be a measure of character. They reached the camp just as the sun climbed higher in the sky. The camp was simple but well organized, with several small structures made of wood and canvas. Children played nearby, laughing and chasing each other. A few adults were working with baskets or tending small fires. The air was filled with the smell of cooked food, earth, and herbs. Tom felt a strange mixture of curiosity and respect. Maria led him to a clearing near the center of the camp. She gestured for him to sit on a log while she remained standing. Her presence seemed to command attention without demanding it. Tom realized that this was a test, though he was not sure what kind of test it was. Yet, observe, Maria said, her tone calm but firm. Notice how people interact here. Notice respect, patience, and attention to small details. These are the things that matter. Tom watched carefully. He saw children helping each other, elders speaking with soft authority, and adults teaching skills with patience. There was a rhythm here, a sense of connection that was unfamiliar yet comforting. He realized that the community valued not only actions but intentions, how one treated others, how one balanced strength with care. Maria glanced at him again. "Now, tell me what you notice," she said. Tom thought for a moment. "I notice patience," he said finally. "Everyone here seems to care for each other. They teach, guide, and help without expecting anything in return. Even the children understand that they are part of something bigger." Maria's expression did not change immediately, but Tom could see the faintest hint of approval in her eyes. "Good," she said slowly. "You see beyond the surface. That is rare. Many people look, but do not see." They spent the next hour walking through the camp. Tom observed everything carefully, answering Maria's questions with honesty and respect. She asked about his life on the ranch, how he treated strangers, and what motivated him to help people he didn't know. Tom spoke simply, describing the work, the community, and the principles he lived by. Maria listened quietly, occasionally nodding. She did not interrupt or judge. She seemed to weigh his words carefully. At one point, she paused and looked at him with a piercing gaze. "You know," she said, "it is easy to help when it is convenient. True character is revealed when it is not." Tom met her eyes. "I understand," he said. "I try to do the right thing, even when it is difficult. That is all I can do." Maria studied him for a long moment. Then, without a word, she turned and led him toward the area where the children were playing. Lila ran up to her mother, laughing and excited. She pointed toward Tom, introducing him to the other children with pride. "This is the man who helped me," she said. The children gathered around, curious and shy, but clearly trusting their mother's judgment. Tom smiled and waved, feeling a warmth he had not expected. He realized that in this moment, he was not just a helper. He was someone who was being observed, evaluated, and slowly accepted. Maria knelt slightly to speak to Lila, then looked back at Tom. "You have done well so far," she said, "but there is more to understand. Trust is not given easily, and it must be earned through actions, not words." Tom nodded. "I will do my best," he said earnestly. Maria's expression softened, but her eyes remained sharp. "We will see," she said simply. "For now, observe, learn, understand. Actions speak louder than words." The rest of the morning passed with quiet observation. Tom watched the interactions, learning the rhythms of the camp. He noticed small acts of kindness, careful attention to safety, and the way respect was shown even in simple gestures. By the time they returned to the edge of his ranch, he felt a deep respect for Maria and the life she led. As they parted, Maria said, "You have a kind heart, Tom. That is clear. But remember, true trust is more than kindness. It is consistency, patience, and understanding. Tom felt humbled by her words. "I understand," he said. "Thank you for letting me see your world." Maria nodded and walked back toward her camp, her daughter running beside her. Tom watched them go, feeling a mixture of admiration, respect, and curiosity. Today had been more than a simple act of helping a child. It had been a lesson in trust, responsibility, and character. A reminder that even small acts of kindness could lead to deeper connections. He returned to his work on the ranch, but the morning lingered in his mind. Maria's eyes, her calm authority, and the bond she shared with her daughter had left a lasting impression. He knew that the encounter was only the beginning, and that the story of trust, respect, and understanding was far from over. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over the desert, casting long shadows across Tom's ranch. The land was quiet, except for the occasional lowing of cows and the soft clatter of hooves as horses moved about. Tom went about his usual chores, feeding the animals and checking fences, but his thoughts kept drifting back to Maria and her daughter, Leela. Something about the encounter yesterday had left a lasting impression. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had only begun to understand them, and there was more he needed to learn. Around mid-morning, Maria appeared again at the edge of his property. This time, she didn't just bring herself or her daughter. She carried a small basket of supplies, wrapped carefully in cloth. He paused and approached her with a cautious smile. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning," he said. Maria nodded, her expression calm, as if she had already made up her mind about him but was testing him further. "Good morning," she replied. "Lila has been asking about you. She wishes to show you something at our camp. If you are willing, you may come with me." Tom hesitated for only a moment. He understood that this was not an invitation, but a careful measure of trust. "I would be happy to," he said. "I promise to follow your rules." Maria's lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. "Good. Follow me and watch carefully. There are lessons in every small detail." As they walked toward the camp, the rhythm of the desert morning filled the silence between them. Birds called from the trees, and the breeze carried the earthy scent of dry grass and soil. Lila ran ahead, excited, her laughter carrying across the fields. Tom noticed how the young girl moved with confidence and energy, yet always returned to her mother's side. He could see the bond of trust and care that connected them. When they reached the camp, Maria motioned for Tom to wait while she spoke briefly to several adults. They nodded in response, and it was clear that her words carried weight. The other members of the community treated her with respect, listening carefully and following her guidance. Tom realized that Maria's influence was not just because of her age or position. It was because of her character, her calm authority, and her consistency. Once she returned to him, Maria said, "Today you will learn more about trust, not through words, but through action. There is a path behind the camp, through the brush. Follow it carefully. Observe how others act along the way. This will be your test." Tom listened closely, realizing that this was more than a simple walk. It was a lesson in responsibility, patience, and understanding. He nodded. "I understand," he said. The path was narrow, winding through the desert scrub. Small rocks and uneven ground made every step important. As they walked, Maria pointed out subtle details: the tracks of animals in the sand, the way children moved carefully to avoid disturbing fragile plants, the way adults spoke quietly while still guiding the young ones. Tom noticed how everyone seemed to act with purpose, yet with kindness. "See how they help each other without being asked?" Maria asked softly. "That is the difference between simply acting and truly understanding. It is easy to notice a problem, but it takes wisdom to address it without causing harm or fear. Tom observed the interactions carefully. Children helped each other cross difficult patches of ground, and adults intervened gently when necessary. There was no yelling, no rushing, only patience and attention. He realized that this small community had learned to value the small things: acts of care, quiet guidance, and the awareness of others' needs. Maria watched him closely as he absorbed the lessons. "Do you understand what I mean?" she asked. "I think so," Tom replied. "It's not just about helping. It's about paying attention, being patient, and acting with care." Maria nodded. "Yes, and that is what I must see in someone before I allow them to be close to my daughter. Not just words, not just intention, but the ability to act with understanding and consistency." They continued along the path until they reached a small clearing where several children were playing near a shallow creek. The water sparkled in the sunlight, and the air was filled with the sounds of laughter and gentle conversation. Maria gestured for Tom to observe. A young boy had slipped on the rocks and fallen into the water. He struggled to get up, scared and embarrassed. Without hesitation, two other children immediately went to help him, offering their hands and guiding him safely to the bank. No one scolded or laughed at him. Instead, there was a quiet reassurance that he was safe and supported. Tom's eyes widened. He had seen communities before, but this display of calm, patient care was something different. It was not forced, not taught through discipline alone. It was learned through observation, trust, and the example set by elders like Maria. Maria watched his reaction. "Do you see how even small actions reflect the heart?" she asked. "Do you see why I observe you before trusting you completely?" Tom nodded slowly. "Yes, I understand now. Actions, even small ones, show character." They stayed at the clearing for a while. Leela ran up to Tom, carrying a small bouquet of wildflowers she had picked along the path. "I wanted you to have these," she said shyly, holding them out. Tom smiled warmly, taking the flowers gently. "Thank you, Leela. They're beautiful." Maria's expression softened slightly, though her eyes remained careful. "Even small gestures like this matter," she said. "They show thoughtfulness, consideration, and respect. These are qualities that cannot be faked." As the sun climbed higher, they began the walk back toward the center of the camp. Along the way, Maria spoke briefly about the traditions of her community, explaining the importance of respect, patience, and mutual care. She spoke without judgment, simply sharing knowledge and expecting understanding. Tom listened intently, absorbing each word. When they reached the camp, Maria turned to him. "Today you have shown more than yesterday. You have observed, listened, and reflected. That is the beginning of understanding trust. But there is one final lesson for you." She led him to a small area where a few members of the community were repairing a shelter. Tools were scattered on the ground, and the work required attention and cooperation. Maria handed Tom a small hammer and showed him what needed to be done. "Help with this," she said. "Pay attention to detail and work together. That is how we build not just structures, but relationships." Tom worked alongside the others, carefully following instructions and making sure his actions were thoughtful. He realized that this was more than physical work. It was a test of patience, humility, and cooperation. The other members observed him silently, offering small guidance when needed, but never harsh criticism. By the time the shelter was repaired, the sun was beginning to lower in the sky. Tom stepped back, wiping sweat from his brow, and looked at Maria. She studied him quietly, then finally spoke. "You have done well," she said. "You have shown that you are willing to observe, learn, and act with care. That is how trust begins. Not through words, but through consistent action." Tom felt a deep sense of pride and humility. He realized that this was not just about helping a child or fixing a broken wheel. It was about understanding the weight of responsibility, the importance of patience, and the true meaning of trust. Maria smiled faintly, the first real smile he had seen from her. "You may not fully understand yet," she said, "but you are on the right path. Continue to act with care, and you will earn the respect of my daughter and my community." Lila ran up to him once more, hugging his arm tightly. "Thank you for helping," she said softly. "I like having you here." Tom looked down at her, feeling a warmth that went beyond simple kindness. "I like being here too, Lila," he said sincerely. As they walked back toward the edge of the ranch, Tom realized that he had learned more in a single day than he had expected. The test had been subtle but clear. Trust was not given lightly, and it was earned through observation, patience, and thoughtful action. He understood that helping a child was only the beginning. To truly connect with her and her mother, he would have to continue to act with care and respect every day. That evening, as Tom returned to his ranch house, he reflected on the lessons of the day. Maria's cautious trust was not a barrier, it was a guide. It showed him that respect, patience, and consistent action were far more valuable than words or intentions alone. He knew that the journey of trust was just beginning, and that tomorrow would bring new lessons, new challenges, and new opportunities to prove himself. The morning sun rose over the desert, casting a soft glow across the camp. Tom had arrived earlier than usual, curious to see what the day would bring. He had been thinking about the lessons Maria had given him the day before, the lessons of observation, patience, and careful action. He understood now that trust was earned through consistency, and that even small gestures could carry weight. As he stood near the edge of the camp, Maria approached quietly. She had the same calm, composed presence she always had, but today there was something different in her expression. It was a mixture of curiosity and purpose, as if she had something important to reveal. Tom straightened up and greeted her. "Good morning, Maria," he said. "Good morning, Tom," she replied, her voice steady but thoughtful. "Today you will learn more than just how to act with care. You will learn about understanding the heart behind actions. That is the final step before deeper trust can be given." Tom nodded, feeling both anticipation and a hint of nervousness. He had already learned much, but Maria's words suggested that this day would reveal truths he had not yet imagined. They began walking through the camp together. Lila ran ahead, chasing a small rabbit that darted through the grass. Tom smiled, watching her joy and energy. Maria observed him as he watched her daughter, as if measuring his reaction carefully. Tom realized again that everything he did, even in small ways, was being observed. As they reached the center of the camp, Maria paused and turned to him. "Tom," she said, "I have watched you over the past 2 days. I know how you live, how you work, and how you treat others. But there is something more you must understand. Trust is not only about actions, it is about intentions and awareness of consequences." Tom listened intently, leaning slightly forward. Maria's words were serious, yet gentle. "I understand," he said. "I will listen and learn." She nodded. "Good. I want to tell you something about my daughter." and about why you have been observed so carefully. Tom's curiosity grew. Please, he said, I would like to understand. Maria looked at Lila playing with the other children before continuing. Lila is strong and independent, but she is still very young. I cannot always watch her closely because of my responsibilities here. It is not safe for her to wander alone, yet she has a curious spirit. That is why she came to your ranch yesterday. That small act required courage, but it also required someone trustworthy to respond. That person was you. Tom felt a mixture of pride and humility. I only wanted to help, he said. I did not expect anything in return. Maria's eyes softened, but her voice remained firm. Exactly. That is why I observe actions carefully. Words alone mean little. Anyone can say they are kind or helpful, but it is how you act in the moment of choice and how you carry responsibility afterward that reveals true character. She paused, letting her words sink in. Then she continued, I also want you to know that I have observed you for some time, even before Lila came to your ranch. I noticed how you care for your land, your animals, and your neighbors. That is not common. Many act only when it benefits them. You act out of integrity. That is rare, and it is the reason I now speak openly to you. Tom felt a lump in his throat. He never expected anyone to observe him in this way. To have his quiet acts of care recognized by someone he deeply respected was overwhelming. I don't know what to say, he admitted. Thank you. I didn't know anyone noticed. Maria smiled faintly, the first full smile he had seen from her. I notice, she said simply. Not everything, but the important things. Actions that show respect, patience, and care. Those things matter. Tom thought about the lessons he had learned, the broken wagon wheel, observing the camp, helping with the shelter, and simply listening. Each moment had been a test, though he had not realized it at the time. Now it all made sense. Maria's careful observation, the gentle guidance, and the small challenges had been her way of teaching him about trust, responsibility, and character. As they walked further into the camp, Maria spoke about the importance of community. In our world, everyone depends on each other. Even the smallest actions ripple outward. A child who learns patience will grow to act with care. A person who acts with integrity inspires others. That is why I pay attention to both words and actions. It is how I know whom to trust. Tom nodded, understanding more deeply than ever before. I think I understand now, he said. It's not just about helping once or doing one good deed. It's about being consistent, about understanding the effect of every choice. Christopher's eyes softened further. Exactly. And that is why I trust you with Lila now, more than before. Not because of what you said, but because of what you have shown through your actions. Trust is not given lightly, but you have earned it through care, patience, and understanding. Tom felt a deep sense of honor. He had not expected such recognition, yet he knew that this trust was earned, not given. It was something rare and precious. Lila ran up to them, carrying a small basket of wildflowers she had gathered from the edge of the camp. Look, she said, holding the flowers out to Tom. I picked these for you. Tom smiled, taking the basket gently. Thank you, Lila. They're wonderful. Maria watched this small exchange quietly. Even small gestures matter, she said. They show thoughtfulness and awareness. They are the reflection of a caring heart. The day continued with quiet observation. Tom helped with small tasks in the camp, repairing fences, carrying water, and assisting with food preparation. Each action was an opportunity to demonstrate patience and careful attention. He noticed the subtle ways people helped each other, the unspoken respect and consideration that made the community strong. Maria observed him the entire time, occasionally offering guidance but mostly watching silently. Her presence was steady and calm, a quiet authority that inspired respect without demanding it. Tom realized that this was another lesson. True leadership and trust are shown through presence, patience, and careful observation. By mid-afternoon, they paused near a small fire pit where several members were preparing food. Maria turned to Tom and spoke again. "You have done well today," she said. "Not only have you acted with care, but you have also observed, listened, and reflected. That is the essence of trust. It is not only about action, it is about awareness and understanding." Tom felt a deep sense of fulfillment. "I am grateful for your guidance," he said. "I have learned more than I ever expected." Maria nodded. "There is always more to learn," she said, "but the beginning is the most important. You have shown that you are willing to observe, act with care, and reflect on your actions. That is why you have earned a place of respect here, with Lila and with our community." As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow across the desert, Tom walked with Maria and Lila back toward the edge of his ranch. The young girl held her mother's hand, looking up at Tom with trust and admiration. He realized that the connection he had formed was no longer just about helping a child. It was about mutual respect, understanding, and the slow building of trust that would last a lifetime. When they reached the edge of his property, Maria turned to him. "Remember this, Tom," she said. "Trust is fragile, but when it is earned, it is precious. Continue to act with care, and the bonds you form will grow strong." Tom nodded, deeply moved. "I will," he said sincerely. Lila hugged him quickly before running back to her mother. Tom watched them go, feeling a mixture of admiration, respect, and hope. The lessons he had learned over the past few days would stay with him forever. He understood now that helping someone was not just a single act. It was part of a larger journey of understanding, care, and trust. As he returned to his ranch house, the desert sky painted with the colors of sunset, Tom felt a sense of peace he had never known. He knew that this was only the beginning of a deeper connection, one built on respect, observation, and mutual care. The encounter with Maria and Lila had changed him, showing him the value of patience, thoughtful action, and true integrity. For the first time in a long while, Tom realized that a small act of kindness could lead to something far greater, a bond of trust, respect, and understanding that could shape the rest of his life. The next morning, the desert was quiet, except for the soft sounds of birdsong and the gentle rustle of the wind through the sparse trees. Tom stood at the edge of his ranch, looking out at the vast expanse of land that had been his home for years. Yet, despite the familiarity of the landscape, something had shifted inside him. The past few days had changed his perspective. What had started as a simple act of helping a child had grown into something much deeper, an understanding of trust, care, and human connection that he had never experienced before. Maria appeared first, walking with quiet grace across the open field. Lila ran ahead, laughing as she chased a butterfly that flitted past her. Tom watched them, a smile forming on his face. He could feel the warmth of connection in the small details. The way Lila trusted him without hesitation, the calm authority in Maria's movements, and the unspoken respect they had begun to share. "Good morning," Tom said, stepping forward as Maria approached. "Good morning, Tom," Maria replied. Her voice was steady, calm, and carried the weight of the lesson she had been teaching him. "Today, I want you to understand the importance of consistency. Trust is built not in a moment, but over time, through repeated actions and awareness." Tom nodded. "I understand," he said. "I want to continue learning." Maria smiled faintly. "Good. Then let us begin." They walked together toward the center of the camp. The children were already playing, and the adults were tending to various tasks, collecting firewood, preparing food, and caring for younger children. Tom noticed how everyone moved with purpose but also with patience, always aware of one another. Even the smallest gestures carried meaning. A nod of acknowledgement, a gentle touch on a shoulder, or a quiet word of encouragement. "Observe," Maria said softly. "Notice the care in every action. That is how we build trust in our community. It is not taught through words alone, but through living it every day." Tom watched closely. He saw a young boy carefully help another child cross a small stream. An elder guided a child in gathering herbs, showing patience and attention to detail. Even the animals were treated with care, fed and guided with respect. Everything seemed deliberate, yet gentle. Maria looked at Tom, her eyes assessing. "Do you see how every action, no matter how small, carries weight? Trust is created through these moments, not by grand gestures alone. To be trusted, you must act with awareness and thoughtfulness at every step." Tom nodded slowly, understanding the depth of her words. "I see," he said. "It's about more than just helping once. It's about living in a way that shows respect, care, and understanding consistently." Maria's expression softened slightly. "Exactly. And that is why I trust you with Lila now. Not because of what you say, but because of how you have acted over the past days. Your consistency, attention, and patience show that you are someone who can be trusted with not only her safety, but her well-being." Lila ran up to him, holding a small handmade bracelet. "I made this for you," she exclaimed, holding it out. "It's for helping me." Tom took the bracelet gently, smiling warmly. "Thank you, Lila. I will treasure it." Maria watched silently, her face showing a hint of approval. "Even small gestures are meaningful," she said. "They show thoughtfulness, care, and recognition of others. That is how bonds are formed." The day continued with quiet tasks around the camp. Tom helped prepare food, repair fences, and assist with small chores. Each action, no matter how simple, was an opportunity to demonstrate attentiveness and patience. The adults observed him closely, offering guidance when necessary, but mostly watching silently, allowing his actions to speak for themselves. Throughout the day, Maria spoke occasionally, sharing stories of her community, the importance of respect, and the value of observing before acting. She explained how each person, even a child, contributed to the well-being of the whole. Tom listened intently, absorbing every word, realizing that the lessons extended far beyond the camp itself. As the afternoon sun began to lower in the sky, Tom and Maria walked to a quiet spot overlooking a small hill. Lila played nearby, running through the tall grass, her laughter carrying in the wind. Maria turned to Tom. "You have learned much," she said. "You understand that trust is earned through careful, consistent action. But there is one final lesson." Tom tilted his head, curious. "What is that?" he asked. Maria's gaze was steady. "It is the lesson of connection. Trust is not only about actions and awareness. It is about understanding the hearts of those you interact with. A bond forms when care is consistent, when actions are thoughtful, and when the intention behind them is clear. That is what binds us as human beings across differences of background, experience, or culture. Tom listened closely, realizing the truth in her words. Over the past days, he had experienced this himself, through helping Lila, observing the camp, and following Maria's guidance. He had begun to understand that true connection was more than friendship or kindness. It was a deep recognition of responsibility, care, and respect for the lives of others. Maria smiled faintly, and Tom felt a warmth in her gesture that he would remember forever. You have proven that you are someone who acts with awareness, patience, and care, she said. And that is why I welcome your presence here, not as a stranger, but as someone who has earned trust through consistent and thoughtful action. Tom felt a lump in his throat. He had never experienced such recognition before. "Thank you, Maria," he said sincerely. "I did not expect this, but I am honored." Maria nodded. "Honored, yes, but remember, trust must continue to be maintained. Each action, each choice matters. That is the way of life here, and that is the way you continue to show respect and care." Lila ran up again, holding Tom's hand this time. "Come play with me," she said excitedly. Tom laughed softly, letting her tug him along. For a moment he allowed himself to be fully present, laughing, observing, and enjoying the simple joy of the moment. He felt a sense of belonging, rare and precious, that he had never known. Maria watched them quietly, a faint smile on her face. "See," she said softly. "Connection grows not through grand gestures, but through small acts, thoughtfulness and consistency. That is how bonds form, and how trust lasts." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the desert, Tom realized how much he had grown over these past days. What began as a simple act of helping a child had transformed into a deeper understanding of responsibility, awareness, and connection. He had learned the value of patience, the importance of observation, and the power of thoughtful action. When it was time to part for the evening, Maria turned to him once more. "Remember, Tom," she said, "trust and respect are living things. They must be nurtured, protected, and demonstrated consistently. Continue to act with care, and the bonds you have formed will grow stronger with each passing day." Tom nodded, deeply moved. "I understand, Maria. I will remember." Leela hugged him tightly, whispering, "Thank you for helping me." Tom smiled, feeling a warmth that went far beyond the simple words. "It was my honor, Leela," he said. As he walked back to his ranch house under the starry sky, he reflected on the journey he had experienced.